All right, so we're going to get to see, we have Grixis mid-range, Kevin Thanakit's deck. This is a different Grixis deck, though, than the other ones we've seen. Well, it kind of is. It actually still has 4 Vraska's Contempts and 4 Chain Whirlers.
This mana base is out of control.
How do you play all these things? Well, we'll see. Let's go ahead and Kevin had hoped to not mess up the mana too much because this deck is very aggressive.
This is going to be the matchup that could punish you the most if you get things wrong. This is not just mono red, but this is also mono red with Fiashino Pyromancer and some Wizard's Lightning. It's just going to be a lot of damage going upstairs very quickly.
So we see Glintsleeve Siphoner turn 2 from Kevin.
And the mana base shaping up reasonably. Yeah, just casting a spell on turn 2, I think that's that can be asking a lot with this mana base. But yeah, you have Canyon Slough into Sulphur Falls, which enables that. And he's still live to potentially have a turn 3 Chain Whirler.
Dragon Skull Summit in Kevin's mana base is so hopeful. So Soulscar Mage swings in for 1, and now we see Viashino Pyromancer. This is the 2/1 from M19. When enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to a player or planeswalker. Kevin will go to 17.
Let's see if Kevin can produce a 3rd red source and a Goblin Chain Whirler. That would be a big deal.
Swings in, Chris down to 18. This is one of those matchups where I'm not sure how much I like drawing that extra card off of Siphoner.
Yeah, paying life, not ideal, though you do have to make sure you're casting spells.
Fetid Pool, turn 3 from Kevin. Not only is it a tap land, it's a non-red land, so Chain Whirler's still a ways off.
Theoretically, you could unlock a Vraska's Contempt on the following turn.
But this is where I think Kevin's punished. His play was a tap land and a pass, and despite 2 mana, it's not sure that he has any plays available this turn, and now Chain Whirler will shoot down his Siphoner.
The 21 Mountain deck successfully cast the triple red spell on turn 3.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Kevin had no plays on turn 3 is tough.
Right. Yeah, Kevin pretty firmly on the back foot now.
We'll see what he can do here. Gets his 4th land. It's Dragon Skull Summit.
There is a Chandra Torch of Defiance in hand, though.
Yeah.
That can only clean up one of these creatures. You still take a good amount of damage on the following turn.
It's going to be his play. Chandra -3 will shoot down Goblin Chain Whirler. He also has Vraska's Contempt available. That'll be up next turn. Now, those Flamekill decks, if you aren't familiar with them, they are very heavy on burn. 4 Shock, 4 Wizard's Lightning, 4 Lightning Strike.
Yep, the goal is to get empty and then just gas back up with the Flamekill. Very heavy on 1 and 2 mana spells. The big update from Core Set 2019 is going to be these Viashino Pyromancers. They tend to be good for a lot of damage. And On-Crop Crasher the play here.
So Soulscar Mage for 1, then Crasher and Pyromancer for 5. Kevin's down to 8.
Yep, Chandra off the battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kevin still has that Vraska's Contempt, but we're getting to the territory where he needs to be casting 2 spells a turn to catch back up. You can Contempt away the Crasher, go to 10. You're taking at least 3 on the following turn.
Yeah, he'll pass. And he's going to have to do that. But Chris is amassing burn here, and he's gotten Kevin pretty low. And honestly, this Pyromancer's looked pretty good. Here's a swing again for 6. We'll see Vraska's Contempt. So Kevin will go up to 10 on the removal spell. And then it'll be down to 7 as it stands. We'll see if Chris can make it more.
Lightning Strike plus Shock is actually lethal here if he has both of those. That's interchangeable with Wizard's Lightning as well.
Shock, Wizard's Lightning. That's
more than enough.
Yeah. That'll do it. That's 7 points of burn. Kevin was at 8. He went up to 10.
This is 13 damage.
Yeah, this is dead. And Kevin counts up. Yep. And he'll pick up the cards. Game 1 goes over to Chris McCord.
I would get the jaw drop reaction if it was just the Wizard Lightning and the Shock. I'd be like, am I really dead? But seeing all 3, that's overkill.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm probably dead.
Right, I'm super dead. And we are going to game 2.
All right. I like this no nonsense deck. We're throwing shocks upstairs. That's our plan.
Oh yeah.
Let's look at the sideboards. The thing about a deck as linear and as mono red flame, I would assume that game 1 is their best game, just because their sideboard's going to be limited.
That would not surprise me.
Let's look at what Kevin has. 4 negates, 3 duresses. That's a big number of both. 2 Banefire, 2 Chandra's Defeat, 2 Argos Bloodfast, an Angrath, the Flame Chained, and an Abrade.
So the Chandra's Defeat certainly come in. This is a deck that's heavy on 1-mana red creatures.
Sure.
Some number of Negate and Duress actually play pretty well in this matchup because this is a more spell-heavy version of the deck. I would not go heavy, certainly not all 7 of that sort of effect.
So I'm a bit torn, because when a player's trying to burn me out, I usually want to board in Negate. But because Chris's deck is so low to the ground, I want the efficient card, so I almost want Duress. What's your feeling as to how Kevin goes for this?
I'd be inclined to reach for Duress over Negate. It also kind of lets you know what's going in the hand, and especially in a deck that has such difficulty with its mana base and has spells that cost a lot of mana, that information can be worth a lot.
Okay. How about Abrade, just another removal spell?
Yep, that plays.
All right. Update. Rax Dillon, they're over on the Legacy match. They win the first game 1-0 up on Zachary Cook. Death and Taxes over Infect. Now on Chris McCord's side, his sideboard, 4 Chandra's Defeat, 3 Abrade, 2 Banefire, 2 Hazoret. There are no Hazorets in the main. This deck is very low to the ground. 2 Chandra, a Fight with Fire, and a Scavenger Grounds.
So there is a question as to how much Chris knows about what he's playing against. We saw Glintsleeve Siphoner and Vraska's Contempt.
And Chandra.
Right. The Chandra's kind of a tell, maybe not to the point to know that Chain Whirler is available.
Right.
Especially because of that Fetid Pools. That one kind of messes up that read.
If I was playing against this deck, I would assume right now that the cards that my opponent's probably playing, I would say Scarab God, Fatal Push. That's like, I'm sure on those, and everything else is a bit of a shrug.
Yeah, I think he's seen enough that he's interested in cards like Hazoret and Chandra, just to try to have bigger effects. You can reasonably conclude that Kevin's going to be looking for efficient removal to take care of your early onslaught.
How do you feel about Banefire?
I think you mostly reach for that if you expect a lot of counter spells. I don't necessarily think that's what you would expect from your Grixis opponents. It's more for the blue-white matchup.
Yeah.
It plays here. It's fine.
If it's your last burn spell, it's probably worth 5. You probably can get all 5 points off it, but I hope we're not getting to 6 mana.
Right. That's certainly not the goal.
I like it mostly, I think, against decks that are trying to settle the wreckage you, and then you punish them very hard for doing so.
Right. It can combine in a pretty cool way with Chandra Torch of Defiance, just utilizing that extra red mana.
To make it uncounterable.
Right.
Yeah.
And just do more damage. But
well, wait, if you just want Chandra to deal 2,
sure.
You can just exile the card.
Yeah. It's doing both things. it's more damage and it's uncounterable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Banefire mostly going to be matching up against Settle the Wreckage.
Yeah, that was always a scary thing from the mono-red decks. Playing from blue-white is when they board in Fight with Fires, you'd Settle the Wreckage them. And now you do have disallows, but you don't always have the full set post boards. You just get this spot where you're like, man, I want to Settle the Wreckage you, but I hope I don't Settle the Wreckage you too much. Like,
right.
I really don't want to take 10 upstairs.
Yep.
Now, on that note, we have a set of car keys. So if you drive a Honda, you seem to be missing your car keys. You might want to come up and talk to us.
And we'll see Kevin on the play here. Looks like Chris is not that confident in the opening hand, but ends up keeping on 7.
Tap land from Kevin. No 1-drop here from McCord. And that would be a reason to not like the hand. His deck does 4 Soul Scar Mage, 4 Gitu Lava Runner, 4 Bomat Courier. It's usually going to have a 1-drop. I suppose it could have been Shock upstairs. And no play on 2, giving Kevin time to just cycle away a land.
Yeah, not even having Viashino Pyromancer. It's a little bit strange, but it is indicative of Chris going for the bigger sideboard plan. Could have some 3-mana creatures into Hazoret, into Chandra Torch of Defiance.
Just looking at this list, I'm a little interested. Pyromancer, he's cut all the Earthshaker Kenras, just actually saying that Pyromancer is the better 2-drop here.
Yeah, when you're not planning on getting to 6 mana, there's something to that.
Kevin's deck does make the turn 3 Chain Whirler. The mana cooperates. Actually, it's doing everything. He's got turn 3 Chain Whirler, double black, and single blue. His colors are set.
Yeah, sometimes it works out.
And we're going to see Chandra's Defeat on the Chain Whirler from Chris.
All right, so it seems like Chris had a pretty good idea what's going on. I suppose Chandra's Defeat does deal with Nicol Bolas and Chandra Torture Defiance.
Right.
You know, perhaps Chain Whirler was not necessarily on the radar.
Chain Whirler of his own.
Oh, Chain Whirler killed something last game. That's a bingo square.
Like you just got a bingo?
No.
Okay.
I need a player to investigate to get a bingo.
What did it kill?
It killed the Glintsleeve Siphoner.
Yep.
I was there. I saw it.
Chandra, -3, clears the board.
Let's see another Chain Whirler. Well,
Chris, yeah, would have loved it, but he has to actually spend a card. He uses Shock to finish off the Planeswalker and just passes.
that's less good, but getting the Chandra off the board, that does matter.
Well, the worry here is Chris has kept Kevin at 19, and I'm kind of just waiting for a Scarab God or a Nicol Bolas here from Kevin.
Yep, 2 Scarab Gods and 3 Nicol Bolas in the deck.
Either of them on this board should be pretty dominant, and here we see the Scarab God.
Yeah, that's scary. There is not much that Mono Red can do about that, and with life totals both being at 19,
Yeah.
that's a lot of damage to deal from here.
Over in Modern, Kenny Dungar takes Game 1 over Clay Spicklemire. Undefeated team for Dillon, Dungar, and Thanakit, looking in a good spot as Kevin may be equalizing here in Standard. G2 Lava Runner from Chris. Does have haste, that doesn't really help here.
The power level of G2 Lava Runner a little bit lower than that of the Scarab God.
Scarab God's going to go to work. Get back a Goblin Chain Whirler, deal 1.
Yeah, a little upkeep activation, it seems. So that'll ping for the zombie as well.
Players in the 230 Modern Challenge. The pairings for your 4th and final round have been...
And the more Standard settles into a mid-range fight, I think the more we're going to see games like this, where Scarab God starts to dominate again.
Right.
This card, right when Dominaria came out, the format slept on it a bit. We were seeing, mono red, blue white, Constrictor, but this card's still amazing.
Yeah, Teferi had its time in the sun for a while, and there's just a couple things that players were missing about how to construct the blue-black deck. And especially now with Nicol Bolas entering the equation, it just makes a lot more sense how to put it together, and you're seeing the Scarab God make a big comeback.
So G2 Lava Runner plus Wizard's Lightning will shoot down the Scarab God, but it's going to come back.
It's tough because it's really hard to race the Scarab God just going upstairs with removal spells.
Okay, Chris does Scavenger Ground it away.
Yeah, that one comes in off the sideboard here.
Unfortunately, he had to hit his whole own graveyard, so his next Lava Runner back to being a 1-2.
There's also the matter of the 4/4 Chain Whirler.
All right, Chris down to 13. Kevin's hand just looks like multiple Harnessed Lightning.
Chris probably going to need to get a Flame of Keld online this turn in order to really compete in this game.
Yeah, he needs something that can draw him a lot of cards, and that's the card to do it.
Right. There's a couple other draws that are fine. If he has those Chandras and Hazarets off the board, those will go toe-to-toe with the 4/4.
If all the removal in Kevin's hand is just Harnessed Lightning, then yeah, Hazaret would be great. There's a Vraska's Contempt. Not as much.
Yeah, that makes it quite a bit worse.
Here is Hazaret the Fervent. Still 2 cards remaining, though, in Chris's hand. Not sure that he can empty his hand just yet.
Yeah, like a shock or a land, that would do it.
Yeah, it just says go.
It's unclear if there is a shock available, whether Chris is interested in attacking or blocking. From 13,
Ooh.
maybe just blocking in this window. He could be leaving up shock and setting a trap as a blocker.
I was just thinking the same thing. If he had shock, if he feels he's very far behind, setting a trap might be his best play. We'll see if he did it. Here's Chain Whirler. If he has shock here, he's going to catch Kevin. Be very into just shock upstairs and block. But it's not a trap. He just couldn't empty. He goes to 9.
That's a lot worse for Chris. And any kind of follow-up here from Kevin will make it very difficult for the Hazaret to even effectively race. A Nicol Bolas would be backbreaking.
Here is Nicol Bolas. It's those mid-range finishers. Bolas plus Scarab God gives the deck a lot of closing speed. Oh, Chris had the shock.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
With that shot, I'm not sure why he wouldn't fire it off. Perhaps he's protecting a good spell to deal specifically with Nicol Bolas.
Must be a very good spell.
If there's a Chandra hanging out, that would make some sense.
Okay, and there is.
Because now you get to Chandra down the Nicol Bolas, which you would have lost the ability to do if you fired off the shock.
Okay.
And the Hazoret does continue to check the Chain Whirler.
Yeah, Chris is adapting into a mid-range strategy. He's got to shoot down the Bolas. You can't let that card transform.
Right.
And it will success. And now Hazoret's going to try to play defense for the Planeswalker. Though Chandra looks like she'll be defeated. Chandra's defeat can target Chandra cards.
Yeah, and that's the one that lets you rummage.
He'll get rid of that Harness Lightning and draw a new card. Not a bad turn. Once he finds a Vraska's Contempt or a Scarab God, he should be made here. And there's the Contempt for the God. And swing on Chris back down to 5. Siphoner joins as well. This should close.
I am a little bit surprised to see Siphoners in the post-Sideboard configuration for Kevin because of Goblin Chain Whirler.
Yeah.
You do need to keep your deck lean, though the cost of that one can be pretty high in this matchup.
On the play, I could see it, because at least you'll get to draw a card before it gets Chain Whirled. But I'd almost soon just want them in the board. I agree.
Yeah.
And Chris not going to be able to come back. So Kevin Thanakit sends it to a game 3. Both him and both his teammates now all have notched a game.
Yeah, now Chris will get the opportunity to be on the play, and that hand in game 2, it did not do very much very quickly.
No, well, he just didn't have the early pressure, and because of that, he really had to contort his plays to deal with Scarab God. He spent so much time and resources dealing with Scarab God that he was never able to go at Kevin's life total.
Right. Yeah, and he still had all the shocks in the deck, but just couldn't really convert them to any meaningful pressure.
We'll get back for game 3. So, Star City Games, there's still time to check out this week's weekly sale. We have up to 25% off select core set singles. And you see a lot of them pictured here. Doing that because it is our first open with the core set. So those are on sale. Check out what we have at starcitygames.com/weekly sale. That's going on through Monday morning. So do that now and check in on Monday when we have next week's sale.
Perhaps Baneslayer Angel.
Yeah. That one debuting in the core set.
Yeah, 2010.
That was, I think, was that the first time where we had new cards? M10 was the first one we had new cards in the core set.
Correct.
And then Baneslayer Angel was really kind of the chase card of the set.
Oh, yeah. That card was quite expensive the first time it was in Standard.
Over in Legacy, Zach Koch takes game 2 over Rax Dillon, so they will be going to game 3 along with our Standard table.
As Modern stands, we still show burn up 1. So that's where you would see the advantage for team Dillon, Dungar, and Thanakit.
Yeah, a tougher matchup for Mardu Pyromancer. A lot of times Jund can fight against burn because their Tarmogoyf draws can race, but Mardu doesn't have draws that do that very well.
Right. Young Pyromancer is quite vulnerable to Searing Blaze, whereas Tarmogoyf is not.
Yeah, there are 3 collective brutalities in Clay's deck, so he might be able to get some distance off those.
That's a big deal. That is one of the best cards you can have against burn.
He actually also has 2 Kumbals in his sideboard, which is, yeah, that one's probably good against burn.
Yeah, that is quite nice.
So Mono Red Flame, this is actually a deck list that has been around for a couple months now. How do you feel it stacks up, or the reasons to play this as opposed to playing traditional Mono Red?
So this deck is very much just trying to hit your opponent with something very proactive. You're going a little bit lower to the ground, and you're trying to go under the decks that are really embracing the very mid-range nature of the format. And there's going to be games. You saw game 1, this Grixis mid-range deck that Kevin's playing has this mana base where a lot of your lands are going to enter the battlefield tapped. You're going to be off-color a good amount of the time, where if you're just casting a lot of 1 and 2 mana spells, you can really leverage your strengths against that. Whereas if you're traditional mono red, you're more likely to get gummed up by Hazarets, have some more expensive spells, and just get kind of caught by Vraska's Contempt.
So when Standard's mid-ranging, this might be a deck to look at?
Yeah. If you're not convinced that the red deck is as capable of going toe-to-toe with the mid-range decks anymore, just going under is a perfectly serviceable solution.
Well, based on the meta we've been seeing today, Chris might be onto something. Their team is 6-0.
Oh, yeah. And we have seen lots of mid-range decks.
It's going to be all game 3s. As soon as we were talking about it, Mardu Pyromancer is able to get a sideboarded game off of Burn. Clay Spicklemire evens things up.
Yeah, the Infect versus Death and Taxes is not a matchup that I've seen too much on the Legacy table here, but I gotta imagine if Rax can get a Umezawa's Jitte online, that's just the whole game. Thalia can slow things down. Source of Plowshare is a good tool, but Jitte would just be everything.
Chris McCord going to start game 3 with Gitu Lava Runner. Last game we found him searching for a 1 or 2 drop, not so this time. Swings in for 1. Lava Runner is actually interesting in this deck because it's not going to be growing on the early turns unless you commit to burning them upstairs.
Right. I wonder how often you just throw a Wizard Lightning and a Shock upstairs on turn 2. Probably not too often.
Dragon Skull Summit for Kevin is able to leave up Essence Scatter. From McCord, third land here on Crop Crasher. That's going to get met with Essence Scatter.
That is one I would like to counter.
And Kevin deciding which way he wants to remove it. Maybe he has more than one option.
Yeah, looks like there's a Harness Lightning available. We did see a Hazaret earlier in the match, which is a reason to conserve Essence Scatter.
Right. And that's what he's going to do. He'll let it resolve and then Harness Lightning it. Still taking the 1 off the Lava Runner.
Yeah, Hazaret and Rekindling Phoenix. Generally the 2 arguments for holding on to Scatter. Wouldn't expect to see Phoenix here based on the spells we've seen, and we have the deck list. We know that Chris is not on them.
Lava Runner might be a key that Phoenix isn't in here.
Right. But Hazaret is one that you need to have a clean answer for.
So tap land from Kevin, and back to Chris McCord we'll go. Swings for 1 to put Kevin to 17. 4th land and just a pass. If this is how things are going to be, though, Kevin will be fine with this. Cycles. We'll see if Chris has an instant while Kevin's tapped down. He does not.
He has at least 1 shock in the holdings.
Yeah, at some point I almost wish we can throw some... If we had 2, I almost want to send them both upstairs so that we can double the damage output of this Lava Runner, but...
Right.
Chris will have to add more to the board. Lava Runner's not going to do it by himself.
In game 2, we saw that Kevin did still have access to Glint Sleeve Siphoner. One thing you want Shock to be able to do is clear that as a blocker.
4th land and a pass from Kevin. He still does not have triple red, 2 copies of Fetid Pools. But he'll go to 16 on an attack. And Chris just keeps passing. Now, Chris's deck is heavy on burn. I don't know if 16 points worth of it.
16 is still a lot, for sure. That is 8 shocks.
I like to measure life totals in shocks.
They call it the philosophy of fire.
Another land cycled from Kevin on end step.
The Gitu Lava Runner has already connected for 2 full shocks. That is 2 cards worth of damage.
5th land. It's the 3rd red from Kevin. And here's Goblin Chain Whirler, leaving up that Essence Scatter. And I like Kevin really benefiting from, I guess, like the 2-turn truce we had. No one played cards for 2 turns.
I would not agree to that as the red player.
Yeah.
I would try to be casting some spells.
Here's Chandra's Defeat to clear away the Chain Whirler. It's also the first instant in Chris's yard. So he might add a second spell to go with it here.
I don't mind a shock. If he produces a second Lava Runner, then I like the shock a lot.
Shock is in his hand. See if he's going to go for that before attacks here. Swing. And Wizard's Lightning is going to be the play. Now, Lava Runner is a wizard, so it's going to be 3 damage upstairs, sending Kevin to 13. This would threaten to put him to 11. Now we have a real clock going.
And the reason to cast the Wizard's Lightning over the shock, yes, it's more damage. You reveal more information in the sense that you show more of your potential damage output. But the thing is, there's a battlefield not too far out where the Lava Runner no longer exists. So you're kind of using your mana better casting the Wizard's Lightning now.
What you're hoping for from Kevin's side is just to draw a removal spell. You'd like to just, take a hit, leave up your Essence Scatter, and then end step Vraska's Contempt away this Lava Runner.
That is a sad use of a Vraska's Contempt. But yeah, you have to do something about it. There's some Magma Sprays available in the 75.
Looks like he has Essence Scatter and Vraska's Contempt. From the control side, when I play against Mono Red Flame, there's just this problem. You do have to play because they have so much burn. Unless your deck has truly negates or disallows in it, you can't sit around on your hands.
Right. One of the concessions that Kevin is making, you might not think it seeing those 2 Fetid Pools on the battlefield, but he's actually just not playing any Fatal Push.
Now, he passes turn, and on end step, Chris goes for another Wizard's Lightning. Kevin down to 8. And how about a shock to go with it? Kevin down to 6.
Maybe setting up for a Flame of Keld turn next turn, getting
Wouldn't
the hand
mind
empty.
that. Yeah, that or Hazaret would do it. Flame of Keld's very nice.
Yeah, having either of those would be excellent. Now, the Hazaret plays into some things. That's a much better target for Vraska's Contempt than the Lava Runner would be.
Three cards left in Chris's hand, but he's burned Kevin down to 6.
He's already been through a couple Wizard's Lightnings. There's still 4 Lightning Strikes available somewhere in the deck. Gotta figure if he's still on Shock, he's still on Lightning Strike.
Swing again. Is Kevin going to go to 4 here? He's given up a lot of free damage to hold up this Essence Scatter. Kevin has given up a lot of life points. And if this is how the game ends, I'm going to say well played on Chris's side. He's really gotten him in a pinch here. So he will Contempt. Kevin goes up to 8. And now we get Hazaret and Pass. I love how Chris has played this game.
Yes. Now the pressure is on Kevin to have another copy of Vraska's Contempt.
Yeah, he managed against a deck that had an Essence Scatter and Vraska's Contempt in hand. He's managed to get a Hazaret into play. Passed both ways that covered it. Kevin he really sculpted the whole game around that Essence Scatter, and then it doesn't hit Hazaret.
Right. Just all that end-step damage, it changed the texture of the match. You really needed to do something about that Lava Runner.
And now Kevin's just going to go and cast Scarab God, but the Scarab God is likely on blocking duty. I don't think you can go to 3 here.
Oh, no. And Hazaret, Scarab God comes back, but Hazaret doesn't leave. You cannot just keep casting the Scarab God to chump block Hazaret. Three cards in hand for McCord. There are some combinations that leave him unable to attack with Hazaret on this turn, but it'd be pretty unlucky to have them. Land makes it easy because you just get to activate the Hazaret. Activate Hazaret plus any 1-mana spell gets there. Most of his spells cost 1 and 2. We've already seen him cast 2 Wizard's Lightnings. That's one of those spells that could get gummed up in a situation like this. The reluctant tapping and untapping a 3 mana often feels like a Hazoret activation you don't want to do.
The attack is so strong here. If it's possible for him to get down to 1 card, it feels like he has to. I guess Kevin can just keep recasting the Scarab God for a while. It will prevent him from taking damage.
Yeah, and it's land and activation of Hazoret. I want to say Chandra's defeat was discarded.
Swings in. Kevin could go to 1. Otherwise, he's got to block. That means he's blocking. I don't want to go to 1.
Yeah. 1 is the incorrect life total to be at.
Says go. Scarab God comes back.
But he's going to have something better than that on this turn.
Yeah, he has enough mana to leave up that Essence Scatter while recasting Scarab God now, but he's still going to take 2 a turn off the Hazoret.
Right.
Until he finds an answer for Hazoret, he's out of plays.
Yeah, see, he can keep casting the Scarab God and treading water, but that at most gives him 3 turns. Given the composition of Chris's deck, it's probably only 2. Shocks, lightning strikes.
Yeah, any of these does it.
Makes that a lot faster. Kevin's deck does play 2 copies of Torrential Gearhulk. That would be magnificent here.
Here is Nicol Bolas. That gets rid of a card from Chris's hand. Now we have our first match result. Clay Spicklemire, the winner 2-1 in Modern. Goblin Chain Whirler accompanies Nicol Bolas. That's a tap out.
Okay, so now you can put the Chain Whirler in front of the Hazoret.
Are we gonna transform Nicol Bolas?
I don't know if that's going to be better than casting a Scarab God on the following turn. Possibly he's just leveraging the window to get a couple chump blocks lined up.
So if you get Nicol Bolas, it doesn't actually get rid of Chandra.
Hazoret.
Right, or Hazoret, yeah. It can deal 10, that doesn't matter.
Right.
It could put a blocker into play. Could draw some cards. You'd die if you did that, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that one.
I think Chris reading the same thing. This is interesting. Lightning Strike on Goblin Chain Whirler. Swing with Hazoret. Yeah, Bolas just has to block here. He's checking to make sure.
Right. Does this like mind control? There's a different Nicol Bolas that like mind controls. Does this one like mind control? No. Okay. Probably should block with it.
So Ryan, where I'm looking at is that he's got a block. He can keep recasting Scarab God as a blocker. If he gets to 9 mana, he can Scarab God and bring back the Bolas.
That is scary business.
Here's Glintsleeve Siphoner and Scarab God. I like this a lot. A chump block with Siphoner. Scarab God brings back Bolas. Now we're doing things.
Right. The timing on being able to bring back Nicol Bolas in the draw step is cool. Now, the active Hazoret kind of mitigates that.
Right. We're still on Chris's side. I mean, he has to figure out a way to gain life. And that's still not clear.
Right.
So Hazoret attacks in. Glintsleeve Siphoner jumps in front of it. And now this match has been upgraded. Rax Dillon, they won 2-1 in Legacy over Zach Koch. So this is going to decide the round. Which team will improve to 7-0. And this is some exciting stuff. So we're going to see. I think it looks like upkeep he's going to go for the Nicol Bolas. Don't mind. He's got to find Vraska's Contempt.
With 7 lands, you can't really activate the Scarab God to try to find the land and the Contempt. You might see him take the draw step to try to find the Contempt and then bring back a creature later.
Well, he has a turn to he can take another hit of 2, so he can spend 1 turn, bring it back, and he can get the land or the Contempt. Right, because it's one card in Chris's hand and the one he draws. So he doesn't actually have lethal on board. So upkeep. Scarab God brings back Bolas, targeting, yeah. Chris, in response, will throw 2 damage upstairs. Kevin's down to 4.
All right, so now we get to the scrying.
Yeah, now keep in mind, because Scarab God brought this back, you can't actually transform this Bolas into a Planeswalker.
Though I can't imagine Kevin's going to have 7 mana lying around to do that in the first place, but yes.
Yeah, seems unlikely.
Not a legal game action. Well, you can activate it, right? You just can't. You just will exile it and nothing will happen. I guess it depends where the colon is, but you can't.
Yeah.
There's no backside.
Yeah, you can't. It can't transform.
Yeah.
So he scries 1. And I guess he can try to attack. Here's Scarab God attacking. Chris down to 12.
You'll have to attack at some point, right?
Sure. Essence Scatter and a Braid in Kevin's hand. I don't know the third card. Neither of those seem inviting. And Chris has opponent at 4. Has 1 card in hand. Just has to wait till he draws the other, and that'll do the full. That'll seal it.
Right. Meanwhile, it gets to Hazaret, a.k.a. the Abyss, down this Nicol Bolas.
Yeah, he can attack. Block has to happen. So Kevin will do so. Bolas is gone. And Chris says go. You have 1 turn to find that Vraska's Contempt. Not sure. Is there any other card he can get that does anything? Can he gain life?
You can combine... No, never mind. Well,
I don't think so.
yeah.
If he's for some reason, if Banefire is still in, it works.
Yeah.
I don't think he would board that in, though. Yeah, he has Negate, Essence Scatter, and a Braid in hand.
Those don't do anything.
You can't negate that Chandra, the Hazard activation, rather. And he just has to draw. Is it Contempt? Is it?
It
Did he
looks
hit it?
like it.
Did he hit the out? Hold on.
I think he might have.
Oh, my goodness. He draws the outer. And Kevin may have hit it. He had a 3-outer off the top.
All right. So now the question is, does Chris have Lightning Strike? And is the top card of his deck also Lightning Strike?
No, Kevin's hand is Essence Scatter Negate.
Oh, he's got Negate now?
He has 1 of each.
All right.
Yeah, no, he's got this covered.
This game's over. Yeah, Kevin
what
hangs
a
out.
draw for Kevin.
Gets that Contempt right on time.
Chris will throw carry Zev. Kevin's down to 2, then he'll go back up to 4. Swings on in. Chris down to 7. And looks like Dillon, Dungar, and Thanakit are going to stay undefeated here. They hit their 3-outer. And Chris doesn't have it. He extends the hand. And you can see it on their faces. They sure dodged one.
Yeah.